Give me a Haitian American female protagonist. Give me revolutionaries in the 1960s. Give me a narrative of the Black Panther Party. And this historical fiction will have you seeking your own place in activism and social justice amongst matters of the heart. Are you ready?
Yeah, 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 yeah. The Books and Vogue podcast. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Come get your favorite next book. Yeah, 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 yeah. The Books and Vogue podcast. Yeah, yeah. With Catherine Brad.
Welcome, book lovers, to the Books on Vogue podcast. This is your premier listening experience, all about immersive reading and helping avid and reluctant readers alike imagine book characters like never before. I'm your host, Scott Trinidad. The format of the show is I introduce a book, share tips on how you can engage your senses as you read this title, because it's one thing to be a mood reader, but you get a little something extra from the story when you are set the mood reader. And finally, I will end the show with a reimagining of my favorite scene. Today, we will discuss techniques for getting into Kingdom of No Tomorrow with none other than the author, Fabienne Josaphat. Welcome, Fabienne.
Thank you, Kat. I'm so happy to be here.
So happy to have you. So please tell us about the book.
Yeah, Kingdom of No Tomorrow is a novel about a young Haitian woman who's moved to the United States after losing her father to political violence in Haiti. And she's raised in Oakland, California by her aunt, who pretty much wants to keep her protected and sheltered from what's happening, but it's hard to ignore the political situation at hand. It's 1968. There's a lot going on in terms of protests. And as a student, she's getting involved in activism herself. And she joins the fold of the Black Panther Party for self-defense, in which she's making relationships. She's learning about empowerment, and she ends up learning also about love, about community, and eventually about surveillance and the dangers of being an activist at the time. So she's coming of age um, in the middle of that era.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for that, Fabienne. Do you care to join me in a discussion of some tips for setting a reading mood?
Yes, yes, I'm actually very excited about this.
Well, okay, book lovers, I hope you have your writing utensils ready because class is in session.
Hear it, see it, smell it, sense it, taste it, touch it. Ah. Hear it, see it, smell it, sense it, taste it, touch it. Ah. Hear it, see it, smell it, sense it, taste it, touch it.
The Books and Vogue podcast.
So, Fabian, what's the vibe? How can we engage our spirit as we read this book?
I think in my mind, this book is very much timeless because it speaks of the activism of the past, but it also speaks to activism of the present. So it's going to engage our emotions, whatever those may be, about what is happening in the world now. And I see what the Black Panther Party did as a kind of blueprint. So the vibe as we engage in this book is that very powerful Black power, re-empowering the people, fighting against empire, and engaging in terms of class struggle. So the vibe is very much around that, but it's also a vibe of love because there's a lot of relationships and forming alliances, learning about forming alliances, falling in love, falling out of love. Um, it's a mixed vibe, I guess, is what I'm saying, but it's intense and it also includes um, themes of how to return to ourselves. So hopefully that helps set the mood as we get to reading.
Okay, okay. So, what's the sound of Kingdom of No Tomorrow? What key notes in music or nature could set the tone as we read this novel?
There's a variety of sound that comes to mind for this book. Because I reference activism so much, obviously there's the obvious sound of what violence would sound like. There's like shattering and gun violence. Um, so a lot of chaos, but there's also musicality, and poetry. So I'm thinking Coltrane as well as Gil Scott Heron. I think Gil Scott Heron is actually perfect because that's a perfect combination of music and poetry. Marvin Gaye, Nina Simone, um, in terms of music. And in terms of poetry, Nikki Giovanni, who's also referenced in the book, Sonia Sanchez, Earthridge Knight.
Okay, okay. So do share the aesthetics. This can be any visuals aside from the book, such as lighting.
I think of this as black and white a lot because a lot of the research and the images that we have of the Black Panthers are very much black and white, for the most part. A lot of black leather, a lot of afros, beautiful grayscale, sepia, bluish tones. In terms of visuals, I'm thinking a lot of Kathleen Cleaver and Angela Davis, a lot of Huey P. Newton images that we tend to see that sticks to the mind in terms of visuals.
Okay, okay. So what's the flavor? Any food or drink companions for this title?
I'm going to say vermouth because that's a drink that came up a lot in the research that I did. Apparently, there was a combination of vermouth or wine that the Panthers used to drink. And I always thought to myself, that would be, if I was going to assign a drink to this book, that would be it. And in terms of food, I'm thinking about the scene where Melvin and Nettie are sharing chicken. So there's that very aromatic chicken and soda combination, but there's also like Haitian food involved because she's a Haitian American. So whatever she's cooking in her kitchen, um, would evoke a lot of okra and gumbo and teas and herbs.
Okay, okay. So what's the aroma? Are there any smells to transport us into the pages?
I am a little bit obsessed with that tobacco and leather smell. Whenever I buy candles for myself, that's where I navigate. And every time I think of this book, that's where I lean towards that. I feel like the characters would very much vibe with that musky tobacco, leather, amber um, smell, like some woods and leather.
Okay, okay. So how can we get more of the feels? How can we engage our sense of touch?
I think for myself immediately, like touching my own hair, like that natural Afro feel is a big thing for me, in terms of touch. And also, I'm thinking, I reference leather a lot, obviously, that would be it, but also natural cottons. Um, I think come to mind like beautiful African prints, a lot of those rugs that are zebra or animal prints, a lot of wood furniture. Um, I think those are good places to start. And so if I was going to sit to engage with that novel, that's where I would, maybe a good like leather chair in a corner of a room with some soft, warm lighting and a little bit of vermouth in a glass.
Okay, okay. Well, there you go, book lovers. These are your recommended supplies as you read this title. If you're able, pause and get some of these if available, or simply imagine because it's time for my favorite scene. Disclaimer, please note that exact words, names, locations, and or scenarios mentioned in this reimagined reenactment may differ from the actual book. Sharing my favorite scenes, I reenacted though. Imagining the fiction world that I've been reading of. Going up all the things, I just gave you a list. Come experience all the senses as protagonists. And it don't get more real than this. Immersive read with books on both and live vicariously. Shoot Your Shot, starring Fabienne Josaphat as the narrator and Nettie, and Kat Trinidad as Melvin.
Melvin stood next to Nettie, towering over her. She wondered for a brief moment whether this made any sense. She was a volunteer sickle cell researcher. What was she doing here with guns? The brightness of this day, the sun licking her skin, and this presence behind her reminded her of what that was like years back when her father held her hands together around a pistol. She'd come full circle, and it was eerie.
I bet these haven't been cleaned in quite some time,
Melvin said.
If it jams, put it down and try another one.
His voice was smooth now that he was standing so close. He'd taken off his jacket, rested it in the corner, and spread out the contents of the bag on the table. Melvin had clearly been here before. She could tell by the way they greeted him as they walked in and registered. No one stopped him coming in with his own ammunition. They led them through the back door to the outdoor portion of the range. Melvin kept the two top buttons on his shirt open, and she resented the distraction. She quickly pulled her eyes away from his chest and rested them on his weapon of choice, pulled from the bag, a carbine. She took a step back, watched him rest the butt of the rifle against his shoulder before taking aim. For an eternal minute, he looked through the sight and stayed there in full concentration on his target, a black silhouette far in the distance. He cocked the weapon, and she remembered his military training. He looked at ease, and before she could form another thought, Melvin pulled the trigger. Her eardrums vibrated. Melvin was still aiming. The weapon detonated each time with a sonic boom, boom, boom. Nettie heard nothing for a while except a whistle, and then silence. She dropped her hands, but her heart was pounding. Melvin held the button down to call the target back. He'd hit it right in the face and in the chest, near the heart. Melvin examined it and then turned to her.
You all right?
I'm fine, she said, her voice trembling. She cleared her throat.
You look scared.
I'm not scared. Melvin looked on with a flicker in his eyes, and she felt a strange fire build up in the muscles of her arms and her legs. She was not afraid. She would show him. She had to, now. It was a question of pride. She was not going to make a fool of herself, not with the defense captain of the Panther Party egging her on like this, or, should she say, showing off to her.
Show me what you got then.
Men were all the same in the same childish ways, she thought. A man playing with guns was no different than a boy playing with toys. And she didn't have to play along. She knew that. But he'd rattled something in her.
You need some help?
Melvin offered. Then he caught himself.
All right, I forgot. You don't need teaching.
Nettie took a shotgun off the table and then balanced it in her hands before gripping the barrel. Melvin rested a hand on her shoulder, and she held her breath.
Try it from the hip,
he said.
Those rifles have a hell of a kickback. You'll hurt your shoulder.
The air smelled of leaves of grass, dust, the thickets of aster spreading around in the distance, and gunpowder. I'm not that delicate, she said. She rested the rifle against her shoulder again, just like her father had shown her, cocked her head far into it so she could see what it was the barrel should be seeing. The target was still. She wrapped her finger around the trigger, and she was once again with her father. And she was about to tear into the sanctity of nature with a bullet just like that first time. Her father's voice, a whisper in the wind. Feu. She felt the breeze blow softly, and she let it, waited until it shifted. She swallowed and felt her throat itch with thirst. When she finally pulled the trigger, the kickback sent the butt of the gun hard against her clavicle. Her shoulder bounced back hard with the explosion, and her ears rang again despite the earmuffs. It happened quickly, and when she looked into the scope, it took her a minute before noticing the faint dust settling in the air. She grazed the target, but it was still there, in its place. She could feel Melvin behind her, probably smirking. But when she turned around, he wasn't smiling, not even with his eyes. He was serious.
This here is a shotgun.
Melvin said, watching her rub her shoulder.
You don't need to worry about aim. You're dispersing bullets. So you're bound to hit your enemy somewhere. This time around, don't be so stubborn. Try it like I said, from the hip.
Her head was spinning, but she felt her nostrils flare. She hated that he was right. But she moved it to her hip and pulled the trigger again and again. On the second shot, she hit the target and saw it flinch. She could feel Melvin looking at her, this time in silence. Overhead, a large winged bird circled and swooped down toward the trees. Melvin nodded.
That's pretty good,
He said.
I think it's because you're angry. Anger makes you a better shot.
I'm not angry. She felt her ears burn from embarrassment.
Sure you are.
Melvin said, now loading bullets into a rifle.
You ain't said a word since we left Lou's house. You got something on your mind? You should say it.
Nettie watched him test another gun. Her blood ran cold. So he knew. He was right once more about her anger. And she decided she might as well tell him. I mean, what else was there to do? I don't like how you treated her, Nettie said.
She didn't deserve that?
Melvin fired his weapon again. And this time, the target came closer and closer, featuring a large hole in the face and in the heart. His accuracy was disconcerting. She clearly has feelings for you, Nettie said, exasperated. She had to make herself heard over the sound of gunfire, and the ear protectors muffled everything but the sound of bullets and her heart thumping in her chest.
Really? You know that from those few minutes we were in and out of her place?
You can't tell me you don't see it. She dressed up for you. Wanted you to stay for drinks. You knew this, and you brought me along. That's why you asked me to come, wasn't it? You used me to humiliate her, or were you just hoping to humiliate me? Because you did both. Nettie realized how quiet it was around them. Suddenly, she took notice of the fact that the other shooters had stopped shooting and were now glancing over to their booth. She'd been too loud, way after Melvin had stopped firing. Melvin stood before her, one hand draped over his weapon and the other on his hip, watching her. She looked away. I'm sorry. I don't appreciate being caught between you and your girlfriends like that.
Are you finished?
She swallowed, disarmed by his question. Behind his protective glasses, his eyes were full of fire.
I don't appreciate being judged or lectured about what I do.
He said.
I serve the party. End of story.
Melvin shook his head and picked up another rifle, semi-automatic. He fired a few rounds and the sound nearly stopped Nettie's heart. She watched him, observed his stance, legs apart, shoulders wide, head cocked. When he finally put the weapon down and turned to face Nettie, his skin was dewy with sweat.
Lou is not my girlfriend,
He said. This time he sounded calm.
I can't help if she has feelings. I don't lead women on, especially if they're already taken. Archie and I, we were bloods. I wouldn't do that to a brother. I didn't come here to play games with women. I don't have time for that. You did? The party comes first.
Nettie lowered her eyes. She regretted having said anything now. She should have kept to herself. Someone down the other end of the range fired a few rounds. And by now the sound was becoming background noise for Nettie. Right, Nettie nodded. No women, no feelings, I dig it. He seemed very serious about it, and Nettie felt disappointed by his admission. Why was she disappointed? She shook her head to chase away the feeling of unease. In a way, wasn't he just like her, not looking to attach himself to anyone, just focused on his purpose? Melvin made room for her to step up and test one more time, a pistol that felt slightly too large for her hands. When she assumed position, he leaned in a little closer to check her stance, and he rested his fingers on both her shoulders.
Relax your shoulders. Breathe. And hold those arms up higher. Breathe, sister.
His touch made her shiver. She felt clumsy, suddenly unable to fire a decent shot, even though he complimented her on her form, telling her she was much better now after she went another round and finished her ammunition. Somehow, she could still feel his hands on her skin. She could still smell him.
You sure are mouthy for a sister your size.
He said. "Excuse me?"
Pay attention.
He ordered.
You're weaving all over the place.
Nettie clenched her jaw. Mouthy. She fired the weapon angrily, determined to tell him off. He was too good at getting under her skin, she decided. When the target came back, she'd struck it right in the chest. Melvin whistled as he gauged it.
Like I said, you're a much better shot when you're angry.
Melvin lit another cigarette, and now the smoke from it mixed with the haze of gunpowder floating in the air. Nettie looked at him in disbelief. He'd called her mouthy on purpose, teased her, provoked her, riled her up to get results. She didn't know whether to hate him or like him.
Look here,
He said, removing his muffs.
if I ever decide to let my feelings for someone show, I'll make sure it's with someone committed to the cause.
Melvin said.
Someone from the party, a revolutionary, willing to fight to the end, you dig?
His words trickled and fell somewhere in her and stopped, stuck, unable to dissolve. Nettie swallowed. That's very romantic in a very morbid way, she said. Melvin looked at her, snickered.
All right, then. I just leaned in and told you something personal. I expect you to keep that shit to yourself. I expect you can do that just fine.
She nodded. Sure. He gathered their weapons and placed them back in the bags, one after the other. Nettie put in her gun, too, as he held the bag open. I still think it was unfair of you to bring me, she said.
And deny myself the pleasure of an open road with a beautiful sister by my side?
It took her a minute to realize he was speaking of her. Nettie felt her cheeks burn. She tried to hide it, but she knew he was looking at her when he talked.
I had to bring you along,
He said.
I knew a sister like you would keep me in check. I get in, get the job done, I get out. Now come on, let's head on out before it gets dark.
She was glad they were leaving, but she also wasn't. Something about the gunfire had ignited a fire in her, a need to continue pulling that trigger. She followed Melvin back to the car, watching him from behind, and she liked how he swaggered, how he carried himself, and how smooth the brother was with words in the most unexpected moments. Nettie felt an odd thrill coursing through her. She hadn't held a gun since she was a girl, when her father had taught her. The process had left her in constant fear, but with Melvin, it was fun. Once she admitted this to herself, she felt relieved. And as they got back on the road, she felt a little sad that the day was coming to an end. When they got back on the freeway, the sun had started its slow and magnificent descent into the horizon. It was 5:30. They'd been out longer than she anticipated, and now it was almost night. Melvin turned the radio on, and a song was already playing. Reach out, I'll be there. Nettie kept her eyes on the sky as it began to blush in a vivid orange. She remembered sunsets nearly like these. She could conjure up the sky from back home sometimes at sunset, when it was blue, almost indigo, pure. She could hear the flutter of wings overhead as the birds zipped through, the way it was when they came for her father. As she remembered that sky, she remembered her father lying face down in a pool of blood in the front yard. She'd fallen so deeply into that memory that she almost didn't hear Melvin's voice until he reached out and touched her arm.
Hey, you awake?
She turned to him, startled. Yes. He let go of her arm. His hand was warm, and his grip strong enough that she wanted it to stay there.
Are you hungry?
He asked.
because we're coming up on Oakland. I know a place where we can eat once we get in town. If you won't.
Yes, I could eat. Melvin nodded, and they fell back into an easy silence, the wind rushing by like a dream.
Book lovers, if you have enjoyed this sneak peek, you can get more by reading the whole book, Kingdom of No Tomorrow by Fabienne Josaphat. It's available at your local library and everywhere books are sold. And if it's not, request it because you deserve to read all the books that interest you. And if you have already read Kingdom of No Tomorrow or are in the middle of reading it, let me know in the comments what you like to do to set the mood for reading because I would love to hear from you. So please leave your feedback. Did you know you can support this show by downloading and become a member of the Alive Podcast Network app? You'll experience unlimited access to Black hosted content and will be able to keep bringing you amazing content week after week. Fabian, is there anything else you would like to share with the listeners?
I'm just realizing now that it's August 1st. It's Black August, and I feel like very, very honored to share this excerpt of the book with you, Kat. Thank you, because this is very timely, as Black August is very significant for Black revolutionaries in American history. So this is a perfect time to pick up Kingdom of No Tomorrow.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Again, thank you, Fabian, for joining us today.
Thank you. That was a lot of fun.
And thank you, book lovers, for listening. With peace, much love, and joy. Happy reading.
The Books and Vogue podcast. Come get your favorite next book. The Books and Vogue podcast. With Catch and Brad. Subscribe, listen, check out recommendations, and happy reading.